We'll start by just having a look at page 118 in your binder for a minute. And this is from 2000, so it's slightly changed now, but it goes through the incidence of breast cancer worldwide. The countries with the highest incidence and the countries with the lowest incidence. So one of the things we see is that the Netherlands, United States, Denmark, France, Australia, New Zealand, Belgium, Canada, Sweden have some of the highest incidence of breast cancer. So the first thing I want you to think, pretend you don't know anything at all about breast cancer. What would you think those countries might have in common that might predispose people to a higher risk of the disease? Yes?
Like what seasons?
Okay. Except for New Zealand. Yes, and Australia. Okay, so yes, higher latitude is one. So that may relate to vitamin D. What else? Industry. So industrialized. And what might that relate to? Anybody have any ideas?
Emissions.
So industrial emissions, what else?
Water, waste, pollution.
Okay, chlorinated water and just contaminated water. What else?
Oh gosh, the air we breathe, the ozone air. Ozone.
So environmental contaminants, and you were saying pesticides on food? Pesticides on food. Another thing would be lots of lights. Light at night. Industrialization, light at night, right? Which then decreases melatonin, which then increases breast cancer risk. What else in the industrialized world?
Poor diet.
Poor diet, more meat, more dairy,
More McDonald's.
more fried foods,
More sedentary.
more sedentary, longer work hours, more stress, perhaps, more electromagnetic radiation, fewer children, later childbirth, okay? Than in Africa, where they start young and keep going, right? And if you look at the countries with the lowest incidence of breast cancer, what would you say about those? So look at Haiti, 4.7 versus 91.6 per 1,000 women. Gambia, Mongolia, Korea, El Salvador, Thailand, China, India, Bolivia, Costa Rica, Japan, Spain. What would you say about those countries? Simpler diets. Most of them are equatorial. More breastfeeding, probably. Longer breastfeeding in those, because they're more tribal, more whatever you want to call it, more instinctual cultures than we have, than industrialized.
Lower body fats.
Lower body fat. Very good. See, we know a lot between us.
Anything to do with, well, the others, no, but these are more, like the water came to mind, the ocean came to mind.
Ah, more iodine. More iodine.
That's what it is.
That's great. That's great. More iodine. And they generally eat more beans, don't they? Less meat. And probably much less dairy and cheese. Look at the Netherlands, USA, Denmark, France. You know, lots of cheese, right? These ones, Haiti, Gambia, Mongolia, Korea, El Salvador, I doubt that cheese is a mainstay, or even much meat in those areas. So it's just interesting. I mean, this isn't science by any means, but it's nice to just use your head and common sense and try to figure out what are the trends in some of these countries. Okay, so we're going to look at the topic of the breasts. So the anatomy of the breast. So we have, most breast cancer occurs in the ducts. So these milk ducts here. That would be called ductal carcinoma. Less breast cancer occurs in the glands, which are the lobules. So that would be lobular carcinoma. Did anyone here have lobular carcinoma? It's generally less invasive, slower growing than ductal carcinoma. The area around the ducts and the glands, or the lobules in the breast, are mostly fat. So the fatty tissue around the glandular tissue often is a reservoir for environmental contaminants, because most environmental contaminants are attracted to fat and will be stored in fat. And then the breast itself is held up or suspended a little bit by ligaments, and beneath the breast is muscle, the pectoralis major muscle, and beneath that is the ribs. So some women who don't check their breasts much will feel something and they think it's a lump and it's a rib. It's a bone, right? And so we have to just have an understanding of the anatomy of the breast. So the physiology of the breast, the function is to secrete milk. It's also a source of sexual attraction and stimulation. The mammary glands are actually specialized sweat glands surrounded by fatty tissue. And at puberty, the ovaries produce estrogen, and the estrogen produced at puberty initiates the growth of the mammary glands and the fatty tissue around the breast. And it's the amount of fatty tissue that determines breast size and shape. So smaller breasted women are not necessarily less likely to have breast cancer because they still have the same amount of the ducts and the lobules. And sometimes, can I say it? As we found out with Shannon, is that when we checked her pesticides, PCBs, and brominated fire retardants, she had much more per ounce of her than larger women. So sometimes the environmental chemicals will be more concentrated in a smaller person because there's less fat to go around, so they may be more concentrated in the fat cells. But that's all over and done with because she did lots of saunas, right? And the mammary gland is composed of 15 to 20 lobes, subdivided into smaller lobules containing the glandular alveoli. After pregnancy and delivery, the hormones prolactin and oxytocin, we'll talk about these more tomorrow, stimulate the breast to secrete milk. So one of the ways that we can take care of our breasts is by stimulating the lymphatic system. So we're going to learn a little bit about the lymphatic system. In the picture, the yellowish cells are actually lymphocytes, T lymphocytes, and the little globs around them are cancer cells. So we want our white blood cells, or the lymphocytes, to be very active and enthusiastic and really vitalized to be able to deal with any cancer cells that might be in the body. And all of us make cancer cells at different times, but they're always, most of the time, taken care of by our lymphatic system and the immune system. So the lymphatic system consists of tubules, we're going to see a picture in a minute, through the body that carry lymph, which is sort of a watery substance that's able to pull toxins from the cells and carry them to the lymph nodes. The lymph nodes being in the underarm area, the neck area, the area in the groin, and literally throughout the body with concentrations in different areas. And in those lymph nodes are many, many thousands of white blood cells. And so the toxins are carried, and those toxins could be bacteria, they could be chemicals, they could be heavy metals, they could be metabolic toxins just from body waste. But as they are pumped into those lymph nodes, the white blood cells inactivate them. That's the job of them. So if there was a cancer cell at all, anywhere, it would arrive hopefully in a lymph node, and a white blood cell in the lymph node would inactivate that cancer cell. That's the job. And another type of white blood cell is called a macrophage, and this is a type of white blood cell that sort of surrounds debris and eats it up like a Pac-Man sort of image. So we need our lymphatic system and the immune system to be working well, to be able to constantly cleanse the breast area. How do we move the lymph? It's muscle action that pushes the lymph through a series of one-way valves. So unlike the heart that is a muscular pump, it's actually the muscles of your body that squeeze the lymph through these vessels, through the valves in the vessels, pushing it up towards the heart. So if we exercise, we increase the lymphatic circulation 10 to 15 times. So when we thought about sedentary people in the industrialized world, they're going to have sluggish lymphatic circulation. We know that women who exercise, we can reduce our risk of breast cancer by, anybody know how much? 50%, 50 to 60% with 4 hours of exercise a week. It's one of the biggest things we can do to reduce our risk, partly because we're empowering the lymphatic system.